Hey guys, tonight we follow the strangest Tuesday you've ever lived. Imagine golden sand shifting under your feet, the air still holding on to the night's chill, and the first rays of sun bouncing off terracotta walls. There's a rooster somewhere behind you who's absolutely not paid enough for how loud he's working. You blink sleepily as a breeze flicks the edge of your robe. In front of you is the mayor of Timbuktu, and you're shadowing him. All day, every Tuesday, he does the exact same bizarre sequence of events. Some are sacred, some shady things, some suspiciously sandwich-related. And no, this isn't some made-up folklore gig. Timbuktu was once a bustling hub of scholarship, trade, and spiritual practice. And let's just say Tuesdays had a certain flavor. You probably won't survive this day without raising an eyebrow, spraining an ankle, or questioning reality at least twice. So before you get comfortable, take a moment to like the video and subscribe, but only if you genuinely enjoy what I do here. And if you're listening from somewhere far-flung, or just next door, drop your location and local time in the comments. Always love seeing where these sleepy little journeys land. Now, dim the lights, maybe turn on a fan for that soft background hum, and let's ease into tonight's journey together. You wake before dawn. That's the mayor's first rule. You trudge through half-asleep city streets where donkeys outnumber people, and the smell of last night stew mingles with dry desert air. He walks fast, always barefoot. No shoes on Tuesday says it keeps his feet honest. You don't ask. As you catch up, a group of date vendors wave from a cart under a crooked awning. The mayor pauses just long enough to snatch one, chew twice, and mutter still smug. You think that's about the fruit, but you're not sure. He arrives at the mosque courtyard Jinglorb, built in the 14th century, still standing with the weight of countless prayers baked into its mud brick walls. Here, the ritual begins. He kneels not toward Mecca, but toward a pile of pebbles arranged in a spiral. To remember the center, he murmurs. You follow suit, slightly less elegantly. The sand is cool, the silence almost holy, almost. Then a pigeon lands squarely on your shoulder, stares into your soul, and coos like it knows things. You don't question this. You learn quickly. In Timbuktu, the animals have seen too much. The mayor's ritual involves 33 slow hand gestures, each named after a different ancestor who supposedly lost an argument with a lizard. The names are whispered under his breath. Ali the unready, Fatimata the overconfident. You try not to laugh. You fail. The pigeon judges you. As the sun rises, the call to prayer rings out. You expect reverence. Instead, the mayor says, "Let's go find Sadhu. He owes me 3 chickens and a sarcastic apology." You stroll through narrow alleys, painted with centuries of graffiti ancient slogans like "Salt is life" and "This wall belongs to the wind." You pause at one corner where a faded mural shows a man kissing a camel. The mayor points. My uncle. Poor impulse control. Historians still argue whether that mural represents a peace treaty or just an unfortunate wedding. Next comes the date vendor round. The mayor visits every cart in the southern quarter. Not to buy, no, to smell. He leans in, takes one deep sniff of the baskets, nods solemnly, and walks on. No explanation. A small girl offers him a squashed fig. He accepts it like it's an offering to royalty, then hands her a pebble shaped like a bird. She squeals and runs. This, apparently, is normal. You cross into the bureaucratic Sector 5 side streets where nothing happens without 3 stamps, and a vague threat. A man asleep in a hammock outside a paper-strewn hut waves lazily. "Morning, Mayor. Sand's behaving today." The mayor replies, "So far, but we haven't reached the chicken bell." You do not ask about the chicken bell. By mid-morning, the mayor has led you to the exact center of town. How do you know? Because he pulls a single yellow feather from his sleeve, drops it, and watches how it lands. "Center," he says. You consider gravity, airflow, and probability. You also consider lying down. Here, he greets the city's oldest woman, who sits on a stool made from petrified cactus and holds a tiny drum. She drums once, then flicks a grain of rice into a clay bowl. "For luck," she explains, "or indigestion. Depends how the wind feels." The mayor kneels. She blesses his ears, not his mind, not his spirit, just his ears. You ask why. "Tuesdays are noisy," she says. You pass a man dusting a bookshelf that's somehow standing outdoors. He's muttering about decimal systems and goat handwriting. The mayor claps once, and the man looks up with terror, then relief. "Still Tuesday?" he asks. "Barely," says the mayor. They both nod like something terrible almost happened. Your stomach growls. The mayor hears it and hands you a biscuit that tastes like sunburn and cinnamon. "Made by regretful monks," he says. You nod, chew, and pretend to understand. There's a faint tolling in the distance, a bell made of old copper pans strung together. That means it's time. Time for the next ritual. And no, it doesn't involve logic or maps. Just sand. You'll see. But before that, he stops at a wall. Just a wall. Stare at it for exactly 8 seconds. Then says, "Still not blinking," and walks away. The rest of the morning is held together by rhythm. A steady cadence of footsteps on sand, of nods from strangers who treat the mayor like a cross between a priest and a magician. He takes nothing, buys nothing, yet pockets fill his robe. Little bundles, charms, fruit pits, folded paper prayers, tucked there by passing hands. You start to feel drowsy, lulled by repetition, by the surreal calm of this strange man and his even stranger Tuesday. And then, just before you can doze off standing, he announces, "Time for the sand painting clerk." She has opinions. You blink. Of course she does. But you'll meet her in the next step of this journey. You shuffle into a shadowy room that smells like cinnamon, parchment, and mild suspicion. The mayor gestures for you to sit on a low cushion that crackles faintly, either old straw or something more judgmental. Directly across from you sits the sand painting clerk. Her name is Geneva, and she's been painting complaints into sand for over 30 years. Not writing them, making them. She dips her fingers into a shallow tray of rose-colored sand and begins to swirl. Each movement carries intent. Each curve means something. You're not sure if you're watching bureaucracy or interpretive dance. The mayor doesn't speak. He just nods once, and Geneva begins. She starts with a tight spiral, then loops outwards, tapping the tray's rim with one fingernail every time a pattern overlaps. Tap, swirl, pause, tap. You realize you're holding your breath. The sand shifts like silk under her hands. "This one," she mutters, "is about stolen goats." Again, you blink. You can tell? She smirks. Goats always leave jagged corners. Then, without looking up, she adds, "And Bakari always blames the wind." The mayor sighs. The wind does have a mischievous streak. You glance at the mayor's face. He's serious, deadpan serious, which only makes you laugh harder inside. Historians still argue whether sand painting in Timbuktu had legal force or was more like emotional venting with flair. Either way, it's on the Tuesday agenda, and it always comes early, before the sun is too high and tempers too hot. Next complaint. A dispute about whose shadow encroached onto whose prayer mat during last Friday's sermon. Apparently, shadows matter. This one's complicated, Geneva says, shaping two interlocking triangles with a swirl that looks vaguely like a disappointed onion. There's pride involved, and possibly turmeric. The mayor makes a mental note on the air, tracing an invisible list with his finger. You're 90% sure none of this is being written down. And yet, it all matters. Another swirl, another story. A trader claims a rival's donkey smirked at his wife. You're unsure if that's symbolic or literal. The sand seems to imply literal. Two tiny hoof prints appear in the corner of the tray. She draws them so fast, it's like the donkey left them itself. There's a rhythm to it. Each complaint emerges from the sand, leaves briefly in front of you, then is swept away with a long peacock feather dipped in mint oil. To cleanse the story, she says. Somewhere behind you, a kettle whistles. Someone's making tea or preparing to flood the street. Either way, Geneva's not done. She pauses, wipes her hands, and opens a wooden drawer beneath the tray. Inside are tiny jars of different colored sans ochre, white, deep blue, even one that shimmers like crushed beetle shells. Each color has its use. Red for arguments, green for jealousy, blue for dreams, black for things people won't say out loud. Today, she chooses white and amber. This last one, she says, is delicate. She sprinkles both colors onto the tray, like seasoning a secret. A man dreams of burying his regrets near the old well, but claims they follow him back. The mayor nods, slowly. You think he understands, but he doesn't speak. Geneva draws a perfect circle, then splits it in two. In one half, she places a small triangle, the regret. In the other, she adds a wavy line, the man's shadow. You whisper, what happens to him? She shrugs. That depends on whether he waters the tree or just curses the fruit. You sit in silence for a long moment, feeling the weight of that. Then she sweeps the whole tray clean with a firm stroke. The complaints vanish. The mayor stands. My ears are full. My heart is busy. Time to climb a roof. Geneva hands him a tiny pouch of indigo sand. Just in case you forget who's really watching, she says with a wink. He accepts it solemnly, then tucks it somewhere in the many folds of his robe. As you leave her chamber, you notice that outside her door hangs a dried lemon, tied with a thread made of horsehair. For truth, the mayor explains, or to confuse time travelers. You both squint up at the sky. The sun's gained altitude, casting sharper shadows. The air grows warmer, tinged with cooking smoke and whispered arguments. You ask, does she ever record happy things? He stops, thinks, then answers, only on Thursdays. No one wants to hear joy before lunch on a Tuesday. That checks out. On your way out, you pass a boy holding a chicken wrapped in cloth like a baby. He salutes the mayor. Sir, my chicken wishes to dispute gravity. The mayor bows. Tell her she has until noon. The boy nods, satisfied, and disappears down a narrow alley. You blink, trying to keep up with the logic, but logic left this city centuries ago, possibly on a mule. The mayor checks a sundial, made from a soup spoon embedded in a loaf of bread. Roof time, he says. Hope you're not scared of heights or honest conversation. He begins climbing a wooden ladder nailed sideways onto a mud brick wall. You follow, your feet unsure, your hands slightly clammy. Halfway up, a lizard watches you, unmoving. You nod politely. It nods back. You are now officially part of the bureaucracy. From the roof, the city stretches out before you, sunlit, uneven, and full of secrets. You hear children chasing echoes in the alleys and distant drums that may or may not be rehearsing a coup. The mayor pulls a small kettle from under a tarp and begins preparing goat milk tea with something suspiciously green. He offers you a cup. You sip. It tastes like burnt velvet and peppermint betrayal. You love it. And just as you begin to relax, someone else appears on the rooftop, robe flapping, eyes sly, carrying an envelope sealed with wax shaped like a fish. Diplomacy time, says the mayor. You raise an eyebrow. Up here? He grins. Best view in town. The real talks always happen on rooftops. And yours is just beginning. The man with the fish seal envelope is named Omar. His robe is the color of thunderclouds, and his sandals seem older than some civilizations. He steps lightly, like someone used to rooftop deals, and he squints at you like he's not thrilled to see a tourist. The mayor gives him a nod. It's either respectful or mildly threatening. It's hard to tell. Tuesday, Omar says. Still, replies the mayor. They sit cross-legged on opposite corners of a faded rug that has clearly been left on this roof through several sandstorms. One wedding and at least 3 dramatic breakups. You position yourself between them. Not quite part of the meeting, not quite outside it. The mayor pours more goat milk tea. Omar sniffs it, grimaces, and drinks anyway. This tastes like an apology. The mayor shrugs. It's what was steeping. No one mentions the envelope. Not yet. Instead, they begin with the ritual of the 3 minor insults. This is customary before business. Before any real talk, they must gently offend each other to clear the air. Omar begins. Your robe looks like it was stolen from a forgetful monk. The mayor replies. At least it's not held together with goat spit and hubris. Omar nods, impressed. You've been practicing. The 3rd insult is always the trickiest, just offensive enough to count, but poetic enough not to start a rooftop fistfight. The mayor delivers it with flair. You walk like a man who has never lost a bet he didn't rig himself. Omar bursts out laughing. Fair, fair. Insults complete. Now the envelope. He sets it between them like it might bite. You sure about this? Omar asks. The mayor just raises one eyebrow. The same eyebrow the Seine says made a Tuareg warlord cry in 1647. Omar breaks the seal and reveals a thin parchment covered in lines, dots, and arrows. Not writing map fragments. You recognize the curve of the river, the slope of the dunes. This is a trade route, or part of one, maybe even a decoy. This section here, Omar says, tapping a place labeled only with a drawing of a sandal, is contested. Spice families from the west say it's theirs. But the pepper caravan hasn't passed through since the Great Cinnamon Incident. The mayor frowns. Still smells like ginger? Only on Tuesdays. You sip your tea quietly, trying to track what's being said. But they speak in layers. Every statement has an echo. Every sentence is a shadow. They debate the route, arguing in riddles. Omar says, "The sand remembers footprints." The mayor replies, "Only if the feet were polite." At one point, They both fall silent and listen to what? You're not sure. The breeze? The creaking of the city? A hawk overhead cries out. The mayor nods. He agrees. Birds are too political, mutters Omar. The mainstream historical fact here is simple. Timbuktu was once a critical node in trans-Saharan trade, a place where gold, salt, manuscripts, and gossip passed hand to hand, hoof to hoof. What's less recorded, but just as real, is the rooftop diplomacy. Historians still argue whether these meetings carried legal weight or were just local theatrics. But from where you sit, sweating gently in the sun, watching two robed men fence with metaphors, it feels like this is where the real power lives. Not in offices, not in scrolls, but on uneven rooftops over bitter tea. Finally, the mayor places one stone from his robe onto the map. Not a marker, an agreement. Omar nods, then scatters a handful of sesame seeds over the page. To feed the truth, he says. The parchment is folded, the envelope resealed with a different wax stamp, this one shaped like a sleeping camel. The meaning? Unknown, possibly invented 5 seconds ago. Omar tucks it into his robe and stands. Same time next week, he asks. If the wind doesn't change. If it does, bring more sugar. They clasp forearms. You feel like applauding, but settle for an appreciative nod. Omar departs by climbing across a beam and vanishing down a neighboring roof. No ladder. Just a confident leap and a whispered insult to gravity. The mayor sighs, stretches his arms wide, and gazes across Timbuktu. You know, he says, some people think Tuesday is unlucky. You wait for him to finish the thought. He doesn't. Instead, he pulls a tiny mirror from his sleeve and angles it toward the sun, flashing a signal toward a tower 2 rooftops away. You squint. Someone responds 3 flashes. Morse code. Morse joke. You're not sure. That's the Salt King, the mayor explains. He's awake. Time to kiss some slabs. You're not even surprised anymore. Back down the ladder. Back into the alleys where sun-bleached cats sprawl like failed emperors. A boy plays a 2-string fiddle near a pottery stall, and the music sounds like someone apologizing to a cactus. You follow the mayor into the shaded northern quarter. The streets narrow. The light dims. The walls sweat history. Here, the scent changes less dust, more stone and salt. You reach a door carved from baobab wood. No sign, just a symbol. 2 palms pressed together. The mayor knocks with a peculiar rhythm, 3 short, 1 long, 2 medium. The door creaks open. Inside, it's cool. Damp, almost. A faint glimmer of candlelight flickers down a spiraling stone staircase. He's down there, the mayor whispers. Don't sneeze near the slabs. Last time, someone triggered a trade war. You hesitate, then descend. What awaits in the cellar is part tradition, part joke, and part Salt Lick seance. And you'll see it up close in just a moment. The stone staircase curls like a snail's shell, each step smoother than the last, worn down by centuries of cautious feet. The air grows cooler with every turn. It smells faintly of minerals, old paper, and something else, an almost spicy tongue you can't quite name. At the bottom, you arrive in a chamber dimly lit by oil lamps balanced on salt blocks. The light bounces strangely off the walls, which are lined from floor to ceiling with rectangular slab salt, stacked like books in a forgotten library. This is the Salt Vault, and seated dead center, upon a throne made of rough-hewn limestone and unmothered charisma, is the Salt King, He's not actually royalty, you learn. It's more of a nickname passed down through generations, like Lefty or that guy with the pigeon hat. But don't let the title fool you. But this man doesn't know about salt but fit into a peppercorn. He's enormous in a quiet way, wearing robes so bleached they shimmer faintly. His beard is streaked with lines of white and curiously crystal pink. You later learn this is a side effect of sleeping too close to the evaporation pans. The mayor bows deeply, and you instinctively follow, though you're not sure how deep is respectful versus sarcastic in these parts. The Salt King gestures toward the stone slab directly in front of him. "Choose one," he says. You hesitate, glancing at the mayor, who only nods solemnly. This is apparently your turn. The slabs vary in hue. Some are cloudy white, others tinged with rust or lavender, or the faintest green. You reach for one the size of a loaf of bread, its corners chipped like it's had a long life. The Salt King accepts your choice and lifts it with both hands. He leans forward, kisses it once on the top, once on the side, and once very gently on the corner. The mayor nods. 3 kisses, always 3. You whisper, "Why?" Balance, blessing, and a bit of theater. Turns out, this ritual isn't just symbolic. These salt slabs are more than seasoning. They're contracts, banknotes, and sometimes even naps. In 14th century Timbuktu, salt was quite literally worth its weight in gold. It preserved meat, cleansed wounds, and served as currency. Salt caravans traveled across the Sahara for weeks, and some merchants still preferred to do business the old way, by kissing the slab before trusting the numbers. Historians still argue whether the 3 kisses date back to Berber spiritual rites or were invented by a clever trader trying to sell kissable salt. Either way, the tradition stands. And today, it's your job to respect it. The Salt King sets the slab back down and takes a chisel and hammers off a single crystal. He hands it to you. "For later," he says, "when your mouth forgets what truth tastes like, you pocket the salt. You will, later, during a confusing debate about chickens, and it will weirdly help." The chamber grows quieter. The mayor steps forward and lays down a scroll. It's wrapped in goatskin and sealed with wax in the shape of a grain of barley. The Salt King examines it for precisely 6 seconds, then tucks it beneath his throne. "Tell the pepper men to wait," he says. The wind's not done speaking. The mayor bows again. "It never is." At that, the Salt King reaches into a leather pouch and pulls out a small bell. Not for ringing, he tosses it into a bucket of water. The bell sizzles, then vanishes beneath the surface. You look at the mayor, expecting an explanation. All he offers is, now he's listening to the bell's silence, which somehow answers absolutely nothing and everything at once. The Salt King closes his eyes. The mayor whispers, "Time for judgment." You blink. What? From a side alcove, a young girl appears, carrying a wooden tray with 2 items, a dried date and a single black feather. She places it at the Salt King's feet and disappears without a word. The king opens his eyes, looks at the tray, and murmurs, "The date is from the western grove, the feather, north." He nods. "Tell them the camel stays." You have no idea what this means. The mayor seems pleased. He chose stillness. Apparently, every Tuesday, the Salt King is asked to bless or curse a single item of trade. Some weeks it's ivory, other times manuscripts. This week, it's camels. Not metaphorical camels, actual ones. You think about asking how you curse a camel, but decide against it. Your jaw is still sore from kissing salt air. As you prepare to leave, the Salt King gives you a nod. You smell new. You say, "I'm just visiting." He grins. Everything here is just visiting, even the dust. Back up the stairs, your knees protesting each curve, you re-emerge into the heat, blinking like a freshly unearthed relic. Outside, the city is louder now, drums, bells, the clatter of wooden sandals. Children chase each other with fans made of straw. A goat perches majestically on a half-collapsed wall, bleating like it's auditioning for Hamlet. The mayor says, "We have exactly 9 minutes before the courtroom camel arrives." You freeze. The what? He grins. Disputes are heard under its supervision. Its mood determines guilt. You don't even question it anymore. He adds, "Also, we'll need snacks." Court takes hours. You pass a woman selling fried bean cakes under a parasol made from 2 old bedsheets. The mayor buys 3, hands you one. You bite into it? It's crunchy, salty, and spiced with something that tingles behind your ears. It's perfect. You're starting to suspect Tuesday might actually be the best day of the week. The mayor says, "Come on. If we're late, the camel gets grumpy. And when he's grumpy, everyone is guilty." Naturally, the courtroom isn't a building. It's a shaded courtyard shaped like a horseshoe, ringed by mismatched stools, overturned baskets, and one suspiciously comfortable chaise that no one dares sit on except a grandmother named Fana, who once bit a thief in court and won her case on charisma alone. In the center of this curious judicial circle stands the judge, a tall, bored-looking camel named Hafiz. You expected majesty, or at least grooming. Hafiz is neither majestic nor tidy. His fur looks like it lost a bet. One eye twitches with perpetual judgment. The other closes frequently, as though court proceedings bore him deeply. Which they do. The mayor hands you a folded fan made from recycled tax forms. Wave this gently if he starts spitting. It's not about you, it's just his process. Today, court is in session for 4 cases. Everyone's wearing their best sandals. A boy with a drum announces each case by dramatically hitting a single note. He's 10 years old and already more respected than most politicians. Case 1. A woman accuses her neighbor of watering her herb garden with cursed tea. Case 2. 2 men argue over the rightful ownership of a shadow cast by a shared tree. Case 3. A goat was insulted during last week's wedding feast, and the goat's owner demands an apology. Case 4. A baker claims someone is sneaking into his oven at night and rearranging his bread. The mayor takes his place on a modest stool near Hafiz. His role isn't to judge, but to translate Hafiz's moods. This, apparently, is a sacred responsibility. Historians still argue whether camels were ever officially integrated into Timbuktu's justice system, or if this is a local tradition invented after one particularly persuasive camel refused to leave a trial. The mayor whispers, "Watch the ears." The proceedings begin. Case 1. The accuser, a woman in a vibrant head wrap, waves a wilted mint leaf in the air. "It used to smell like hope," she says. "Now it smells like bad decisions." Her neighbor, older, grumpier, missing one sandal, claims the tea he spilled was not cursed, but merely emotionally charged. Hafiz listens, blinking slowly. The mayor leans in. He's chewing twice. "That means partial guilt." The crowd murmurs. The mayor raises his hand. A fine of 2 figs and an apology that must rhyme. Case closed. Case 2 gets spicy. One man has measured the shadow's length to the nearest pebble. The other insists shadows don't count during the dry season. The camel snorts. The mayor frowns. Disdainful. He thinks they're both ridiculous. Verdict: the shadow shall be shared on alternating days, except Tuesdays. Too emotionally volatile, the mayor adds. You start to notice the rhythm. Arguments rise and fall, tempers flare and fade, all under the passive gaze of Hafiz, whose tail occasionally flicks at invisible flies or foolish logic. Case 3. The insulted goat is brought in. She's wearing a necklace made of dried apricots and looks furious. The accused, a flute player, claims he only suggested the goat looked like a confused yam. Not even a mean yam, he adds. The goat bleats once, steps forward, and pees next to the flute. The mayor nods. She has spoken. Hafiz lowers his head and burps. Verdict: a full apology, plus a public poem praising the goat's elegance. Case 4 is stranger. The baker swears his bread ends up braided in the wrong direction, despite careful prep. I know my twists, he insists. Someone's sabotaging my symbolism. There's murmuring in the crowd. The mayor observes Hafiz carefully. One ear twitches, the other does not. Neutral, he says. He's thinking. Then Hafiz spits. Not at anyone, just in the general direction of the oven-shaped sketch someone drew in the sand. The mayor squints. Interpretive contempt. He calls for a temporary cease-baking order until next Tuesday, when the oven can be spiritually audited. The court gasps. You're starting to love Tuesdays. During a short break, you and the mayor step into a patch of shade. Someone hands you a clay cup of chilled hibiscus tea. You sip. It's floral, a little tart, with notes of something almost like melon. The mayor wipes sweat from his brow with a cloth embroidered with the phrase, "Justice is not afraid of dust." You ask, how accurate is Hafiz? He smiles. He's been wrong 3 times in 12 years. You raise an eyebrow. The results were complicated, he adds. 1 marriage, 2 disappearances, and a strangely popular hat. Court resumes with a bonus case. A farmer asks if it's fair that his chickens now prefer his neighbor's roof. Hafiz watches the man speak, then lays down in the sand and closes his eyes. Everyone understands. Chickens go where they want, says the mayor. So do truths. Court adjourns. Hafiz is led away slowly, rewarded with a basket of dates and 1 very confused lizard. As the crowd disperses, the mayor dusts off his robe. Time for regrets, he says. You nod, fully expecting something surreal. He adds, the scroll vault's cool, though. That's a plus. You follow him down a quiet lane, the noise of court behind you, the city softening again. Children hopscotch with chalked equations. A woman waters a plant from a tin kettle shaped like a duck. A cat watches you from a rooftop, possibly planning a heist. The vault appears ahead an arched doorway, half covered by a hanging mat of woven reeds and dyed threads. It smells like old paper and secrets. You ask, do people read regrets for fun? The mayor gives a soft laugh. No one reads them for fun. They read them to remember how not to end up in a poem. You duck through the doorway. Inside, it's dim, dry, and lined with scrolls, hundreds of them, bundled in silk, tied with ribbon, stamped with wax seals shaped like tears, birds, teeth. Some are tiny, some longer than your arm. All of them were written with the intent, forget. The mayor sighs. Let's pick a scroll. You nod. It's a regretful time. The scrolls hum with silence. Not literally, of course, but the air in the vault feels weighted, like sound knows better than to misbehave here. The mayor kneels, fingers brushing over bundles of parchment bound in faded cloth. He doesn't read the labels, doesn't check a catalog, just reaches for one wrapped in violet, silk and tied with a knot, so tight it looks like the regret didn't want to let go. Every Tuesday, he murmurs, we read just one. You sit beside him on a narrow bench that creaks like it remembers when the regrets were still fresh. Around you, the vault glows faintly with sunlight filtering through a carved ceiling vent dancing across dust motes that drift like ancient thoughts. The mayor unties the scroll and unrolls it with care. The parchment crackles softly. The ink is deep brown, faded in places, but still legible. The handwriting leans forward, as if the writer was in a hurry to forget. He reads aloud, "To the man I mistook for a thief, who was only carrying bread for his grandmother, I offer a broken coin and the sound of my shame during market hour." Signed Azima, who no longer eats before asking. The mayor pauses, then folds the scroll shut again. Simple, he says. But perfect, you ask. Who was Azima? He shrugs. No one you'd know, but her scroll gets more visitors than most. He tucks it back into the shelf, nestled between the apology of the empty jar and I regret naming my son after a cloud. Every scroll in this vault is a confession. Some are decades old, others centuries. A few, the mayor admits, might even be forged, but in Timbuktu, even a fake regret can teach something true. Historians still argue whether the scroll vault was a personal project by one eccentric imam, or a sanctioned effort to spiritually declutter the minds of Timbuktu's scholars. The scrolls aren't legal documents, but many families consider it a grave offense to destroy one. You walk the aisles slowly, peering at the bundles. One scroll is stamped with a chicken's footprint. Another is tied with a thread made from braided beard hair. A third bears only a name, Zare, and the line, "I should have waited for the mango." You don't need the backstory. That one hits a little too close. The mayor touches a scroll gently, then pulls it partway out. This one, he says, is dangerous. You stare. He smiles. Not because of what it says, because someone keeps rewriting it. He unrolls it and reveals dozens of crossed out lines, overwritten words, entire paragraphs patched with wax and scratched in fresh ink. It reads like someone arguing with themselves across years. I regret leaving. No, I don't. I had to leave. But I regret not returning. I regret thinking it would be the same. I regret assuming she'd wait. I regret assuming I deserved her waiting. The mayor taps the final line. Maybe regret is just pride wearing a costume. He rolls it up again and places it reverently in a red bowl on a high shelf. We keep that one there, he says, so it looks down on us. You take a breath. It smells like dust and ink and second chances. He gestures to a low writing desk tucked in the corner, beside a tin box filled with cracked wax seals. People can leave on their own, he says, if they're brave or tired or both. There are fresh scrolls stacked beside it, blank, waiting. You don't pick one up, not today. But you notice your hand lingers a second longer than expected. Most people wait until after the fountain, the mayor says softly. That's when your brain gets loud. You leave the vault together, stepping out into the sunlight. It hits your skin like a song you'd forgotten, brighter than it should be. The mayor pulls a scroll fragment from his pocket and folds it into a tiny boat. He sets it floating in a rain barrel and whispers something under his breath. You don't ask what. Not this time. The walk to the next stop is quiet. You're both carrying something now, whether it's Azima's apology or the sound of your own thoughts echoing in that vault. It follows you down the alley like a stray cat with secrets. Eventually, you arrive at the argument fountain. It no longer flows. It hasn't for years, not since the pipe broke and someone decided silence suited it better. But the mayor still walks around it. Every Tuesday, 12 full laps. And while he walks, he debates whoever shows up. Today, it's an old philosopher named Ba. His robes are patched, his eyebrows monumental, and he carries a string of worry beads that clack with every point he makes. The mayor nods at him. Ready? Ba grins. Only if we're arguing time again. And they're off. Around the fountain they go, lap after lap, debating whether time is a line, a loop, or a clever rumor. Ba says time can be folded like a letter. The mayor says it's a goat, you can chase it, but never hurt it. You sit nearby on a worn stone, listening. Occasionally, they stop to glare at each other, then resume walking. People pass by, occasionally chiming in. A child yells, "Time is a banana." The mayor shouts back, "Only on Thursdays," you laugh. But deep down, something stirs. Something that started in the scroll vault and now hums under your ribs. Regret? Hope. Whatever blend Tuesday is made of. By the 12th lap, both men are sweaty, winded, and smiling. Ba claps the mayor's shoulder. Call it a draw? The mayor raises a finger. Only if you admit time owes us both a sandwich. They shake hands. Argument settled. You look at the dry basin. The inscription reads, "May all fierce words wash away eventually." The mayor breathes deeply, then says, "Spice Council waits." Come on. Of course it does. You wouldn't know it was a Spice Council from the outside. From the street, it looks like a bakery having a mild identity crisis. Soot-smudged walls, a crooked sign featuring a loaf that might also be a fish, and the unmistakable scent of bread, cardamom, and mild territorial tension. The mayor ducks inside without a word. You follow him into the warm, yeasty air. Loaves cool on wooden racks. A teenage apprentice mutters something about flower ghosts. You step around a flour sack that's clearly been repurposed into a chair, and the mayor lifts a curtain stitched with tiny chili peppers. Behind it lies another world. A round table dominates the small, clay-walled room. Around it sit 6 individuals, each more spice-stained than the last. One has turmeric permanently tattooed into his fingernails. Another smells like 7 different kinds of cinnamon and 1 suspicious hint of garlic. This is the Secret Spice Council. And yes, they meet every Tuesday. Why a council? Because Timbuktu's spice trade is like a live theater performance. Vibrant, unpredictable, and prone to melodrama. The council doesn't just set prices, they shape palates. One offhand remark, and the whole city's tea might taste like anise for a month. The mayor sits in the only chair with a carved pepper on its backrest. He nods solemnly. Let the tasting begin. A bowl is passed around. Each person pinches a bit of golden powder and tastes it on the back of their hand. No labels, no explanations, only instinct. The first man closes his eyes. Too confident. The woman beside him smirks. It's saffron trying to be turmeric. Dishonest. The mayor samples. No, it's a clove in disguise. But it wants to be admired. A second bowl follows something dark, rich, and smoky. The air fills with the memory of feasts you haven't eaten yet. One man coughs. This is war spice, the kind you use before difficult conversations. The youngest member, a girl of maybe 14, adds, or for stews that pretend they're not sad. You whisper to the mayor, "Do they always talk like this?" He nods. It's the spices. They demand poetry. Historians still argue whether the council was ever officially recognized by any sultan or caliph. Some say it began as a joke 6 traders locked in a bakery during a sandstorm, forced to invent a ranking system to pass the time. Others claim it's a ritual born of older desert clans, where the nose was a more powerful guide than any compass. What's certain is this: once a spice is approved by the council, it becomes prophecy. A third bowl makes the round. You try it this time. It's sharp, sweet, slightly electric, like biting into the word maybe. You say, "It tastes like a secret someone almost told me." The council goes silent. Then the turmeric man leans in and says, "You may stay." That, apparently, is high praise. The fourth bowl is the wild card. It's made from ingredients brought in that morning. No names, no origins, just flavor. Today's blend is bright green with silver flecks. One taste, and your tongue does a backflip. "Lemongrass," mutters the garlic-scented woman. "And rain?" The mayor smiles. "And tamarind, but only the stubborn kind." The council murmurs approval. A heated debate ensues over whether it's ready for public use. The youngest says it's a summer spice. The oldest insists it's for funerals only. Voices rise. Someone slams a spoon. A puff of coriander fills the air like a sneeze in a perfume shop. You lean back, dazed by aroma. The mayor calls for order by striking a stone against a block of dried ginger. It echoes like thunder in a soup pot. Verdict: the spice shall be named Whispers at Dusk and reserved for sauces served with apologies. Once all the bowls are judged, the council recites the closing blend, a chant-like listing of the week's top flavor notes. You can't catch every word, but you hear. Cumin for courage, clove for patience, pepper for what must be said, ginger for what must be swallowed. You shiver just a little. The mayor stands. "Thank you, council. As always, I will taste wisely." He hands each member a folded slip of paper, this week's updated trade routes, now influenced by their collective tongues. You step out from the curtain and back into the bakery. The apprentice hands you a fresh roll, dusted with sesame and something bright orange. You bite in. It's warm, flaky, and vaguely accusatory. You love it. Outside, the sun leans toward late afternoon. The shadows grow taller, as if listening in. The mayor pulls a tiny notebook from his sleeve and scribbles a line. You peek over his shoulder. It reads, "Spice Council leaned toward citrus. Prepare the melon men." You don't ask, you're learning. Next stop, the Dead Letter Grove. Not as ominous as it sounds, maybe. "Time to write to the ancestors," says the mayor. Or at least pretend they're reading. You follow him out of the spice-scented bakery and into a quieter part of the city. Here, the streets widen, and the noise of the marketplace fades into bird calls and broom sweeps. The wind carries whispers. Or maybe peanut smoke. You arrive at a baobab tree massive, ancient, and riddled with clay pots nestled in its hollowed bark. Hundreds of them. Some cracked, some sealed with wax. A few have feathers tied to their necks, One wears a small, crooked hat. "This," the mayor says, "is where we keep our unread mail." He sits cross-legged beneath the tree, pulls out a worn brush and a piece of parchment, and begins to write. You sit beside him. He doesn't tell you what he's writing. You don't need to know. You just listen to the sound of ink sliding over paper, of the tree leaves rustling like slow applause, of the past making room for another message. When he's done, he folds the parchment 3 times, seals it with peanut paste, and slides it into a pot marked with a sunburst. You ask, "Does anyone ever open them?" He shrugs. Sometimes the wind reads them. Sometimes the ants carry the answer. You believe him. The tree watches. The pots hum faintly with the weight of every unspoken word. You leave quietly. It's almost time for music. And the lute is a liar. You hear the lute before you see him. A low, slinking melody winds through the alleyways, like smoke, playful, haunting, sly. It's the kind of tune that makes you question whether someone is falling in love, plotting revenge, or simply making soup with questionable mushrooms. The mayor nods toward the sound. He's warming up. Never trust the first tune. It's always a decoy. You turn a corner and find him sitting under a blue tarp strung between 2 crumbling walls. The lutenist. He's barefoot, blindfolded, and grinning like a man who's been waiting centuries to tell you exactly what not to do next. The lute rests in his lap worn smooth at the edges, strung with something that doesn't look like any string you've seen before. The mayor bows slightly. Truth lies, if you please. The lutenist nods and begins to play not a song, but a conversation. 3 notes up, 2 down. A bend that feels like a shrug. Then words. His voice is dusty and warm, like a poem trying not to rhyme. The camel dreams of wings. The salt slab wishes it had lied. And the young goat in the square is not a goat at all. You glance at the mayor, who mutters, "Ignore the goat bit. He always throws one in." The lutenist continues. A stranger holds a message but doesn't know where to send it. A shadow walks backward, hoping not to be followed. And someone in this city is about to trade something valuable for something they think is useful. He pauses, lets the silence settle. Then, softly, ask your question. The mayor doesn't hesitate. Which route is safer? The one with too much light, or the one with none at all? The lutenist doesn't answer with words. He plucks a progression of notes that fall like pebbles into water ripples, not splashes. Then he says, "Light reveals, but shadow remembers. One path forgets your name. The other asks it again and again." You blink. You are, officially, too tired to pretend it makes sense, but it feels true, which is all that matters here. Historians still argue whether the lutenist of Timbuktu was a title passed down through generations or a singular, undying trickster with a fondness for stringed instruments and metaphor. No written records confirm his predictions. And yet, merchants change routes after hearing a single tune. Marriages are delayed. Rain is anticipated. War is reconsidered. The mayor listens carefully and leans forward. "Tell me this, do we bury it, or do we let it burn?" The lutenist answers with a soft chuckle and 3 descending chords. The mayor nods. "We burn it. You have no idea what it is, but you suspect someone's day is about to be dramatically shortened." The mayor thanks him with a gesture. He scatters a handful of millet seeds in a circle and places a pebble in the center. The lutenist says, "I'll tell the wind you listened." As you leave, the music resumes, but this time it's bright, nearly ridiculous. like a chicken doing algebra. You laugh. The mayor rolls his eyes. He's showing off now. You ask, how accurate is he? The mayor doesn't answer right away. Then softly, he told me once that my sandals would betray me. I didn't believe him. But I got blisters the next day. You glance at the mayor's feet. Today's sandals look suspiciously new. He notices. That reminds me. It's time. For what? He grins. The sandal swap ritual. Of course. You head back toward the central square. It's louder now, vendors shouting over spices, children laughing, drums competing with arguments. At the heart of the square stands a wooden host, wrapped in faded ribbons. Around it, sandals, dozens, maybe hundreds, piled, scattered, offered. You watch as locals approach, remove their sandals, and walk away in a different pair. No rules, no exchanges, just trust and foot-sized chance. The mayor kicks off his own sandals. Every Tuesday, the city shuffles its feet. It confuses envy, distracts gout, also helps with perspective. Sometimes someone else's blisters help you appreciate your own. You hesitate, then remove yours and set them beside a pair that looks suspiciously like they've walked across at least 2 philosophical disagreements. You pick a new pair. They're soft, slightly too big, and faintly smell of orange peel. You walk a few steps. The world feels different, not better, just tilted. See? The mayor says. New feet, new path. He bows to a woman wearing one red sandal and one made of braided bark. She nods in return, her expression serene. Nearby, a boy finds a sandal full of rice. He eats some, then skips away. A girl discovers a scroll inside hers. She reads it, grins, and hugs her brother without explanation. Historians still argue whether the ritual originated as a practical swap for worn shoes or an elaborate metaphor for empathy. Either way, no one leaves the square the same. A tall man claps the mayor on the shoulder. Yours were squeaky, mine hum. The mayor bows. May they sing only truths. The sun tilts lower in the sky. You feel taller in your new sandals. Not because they raise you, but because someone else trusted you with them. And now it's time. The mayor says, let's go to the market. You frown. For fish? No, he says, grinning. For the crown. You know better than to ask. But nothing prepares you for the ceremonial headpiece made of gilded reeds, faded ribbon, and yes, dried crocodile dung. You're not ready. You'll wear it anyway. The fish market assaults your senses before you even see it. They even see it? The air shifts saltier, heavier, touched with the unmistakable tang of things that once swam and now sit waiting for dinner plans. The ground is slick with old scales and stories. You hear laughter, haggling, the flap of tarp, and somewhere, someone singing a song about a catfish that fell in love with a shoe. This is not the clean, orderly market of polished tourist brochures. This is the true spine of the city's appetite. Slabs of dried fish hang from rafters. Crates overflow with shrimp, smoked eels, and spiny creatures that look like underwater rulers. And walking directly into it all is the mayor, now holding what looks like a shoebox wrapped in palm leaves. He pauses beside a fishmonger with a voice like thunder and teeth like puzzle pieces. The woman nods. It's ready. The mayor unties the box and lifts out the crown. You are not emotionally prepared. It's delicate and horrifying. Twisted reeds form the frame, draped in linen stained with henna and something darker. Tiny feathers poke out at odd angles. And at the top, like the cherry on a deranged sundae, a dried crocodile dropping, sculpted and lacquered into a disturbingly regal bulb. Do not laugh, the mayor says. It's blessed. You swallow your giggle and nod respectfully. This, he continues, is the crocodile dung crown. On Tuesdays, it must be worn for one full circuit of the fish market. Backwards. You blink. Why backwards? He places the crown gently on his head, grimacing only slightly as the crust touches his scalp. To undo envy, to confuse fate. And because someone once dared the Sultan to do it, and he did, and won a camel race because of it, you've stopped questioning things. He begins his walk, one cautious backward step at a time. Vendors pause to bow. Some laugh, but respectfully. Children mimic him, walking backward until they trip over baskets of sardines. You follow, awkwardly, trying not to bump into crates of mackerel. Every few feet, someone calls out a blessing. May your sandals never match. May your regrets stay tasty. May your fish always blink first. The mayor accepts them with a slow nod, never turning to face them. Only look back when you're trying to move forward, he mutters. But only on Tuesdays. Historians still argue whether this ritual has any real lineage, or is simply a localized prank that got completely out of hand. There's a single mention in a 17th century traveler's diary of a man parading backward among eels, crowned in shameful glory, but it's unclear whether that was a hallucination or just an excellent Tuesday. As the mayor walks, he recites something under his breath. You lean closer. It's a poem. I am not the fish, but I remember swimming. I am not the tooth, but I carry its hunger. I am not the crown, but I carry its stink. He smirks. We all carry something. He completes the circuit. Cheers erupt from a stall shaped like a whale. A woman tosses a handful of dried anchovies into the air like confetti. The mayor removes the crown and places it gently in a bronze basin filled with rosewater and mint. To cleanse its dignity, he says. The fishmonger nods solemnly and covers it with a veil made of old fishing net. You exhale, only just realizing you'd been holding your breath. I hated that, you whisper. So does everyone, the mayor replies. That's the point. He leads you away from the market, feet picking up the pace. What's next, you ask? He grins. Quiet, sound, then ghosts. You don't like the way he says that. The alleys change again, less colorful now, more muted. Doors close as you pass. A cat darts across your path and disappears into a crack in the wall. Somewhere, a door creaks for no reason. You arrive at an arched doorway carved with symbols that look like wind trying to write its name. The mayor presses his palm against it. It opens with a soft sigh. Inside is darkness and silence. Deep, dense silence that feels like thick cloth laid over your ears. This, he whispers, is the library of forgotten sounds. It's unlike any library you've seen. No books, no shelves, just instruments, some recognizable, others not. Bowls filled with water at different levels. Bells that hang upside down. Pipes capped with wax. A wall of feathers suspended on string. The mayor steps softly across the room and taps a bowl with his fingernail. The tone it emits is low, sad, and beautiful. It vibrates through your ribs. These are sounds we used to know, he says, but we forgot how to listen. You follow him as he drags a bough across a stringed gourd. The sound is barely audible, a whimpering breath of music. Once, this was how we told the weather, he says. Once, this was the alarm for jealousy. Once, this calmed a fever. You whisper, "Are any of them dangerous?" He nods. Two, the bowl of blame and the whispering horn. We don't touch those. Last time, someone lost their name for 3 days. You step back carefully from both. Historians still argue whether this library ever formally existed. It's not recorded in any official manuscripts. Some say it was a private obsession of a 15th century healer who believed every illness had a corresponding note. Others think it's younger, an invention from the musical rebellion of 1792, when the city banned whistling after dark for reasons still unknown. The mayor walks to the center of the room and claps twice. The echo takes far too long to return. That's how you know the silence is full, he says. You sit cross-legged on a mat, woven from old music notation. You listen. You hear the soft hum of wind through a carved flute, the crackle of a memory that may never have happened, the tiniest splash from a bowl behind you, though nothing touched it. Then, from somewhere near the back of the room, a faint note rises, a hum that feels like it's remembering something for you. You close your eyes. You forget where you are. And when you open them, the mayor is watching you kindly. Ready for dinner? He asks. With? He tilts his head. The ghost. You leave the library of forgotten sounds with your ears ringing, except there's no sound. Just the weight of listening to things that don't quite exist anymore. The mayor says nothing for a while. Neither do you. Words feel rude after that. But eventually, he clears his throat and says, "The ghost prefers we don't keep it waiting." Of course it does. You walk east, where the city starts to fray mud brick walls, giving way to cracked stone, newer roofs replaced by wind-worn ruins. The streets are emptier here, as if even the shadows aren't sure they're invited. You arrive at a small house on the very edge of the city, its doorway marked by a bundle of dry reeds and a pebble tied with red string. There's no door, just cloth hanging in the entrance, fluttering like breath. The mayor steps inside. You follow. The room is round, dimly lit, with a low table at the center and pillows placed in a careful ring. The air smells faintly of cardamom, old paper, and something colder underneath. A single bowl of glowing coals rests near the back wall, and beside it, a figure. They wear layers of white linen that don't rustle when they move. Their face is covered by a veil made from woven goat hair and threads of blue glass. Their hands rest still, palms up. You sense a presence before they speak, a chill that slides across your shoulders and settles somewhere behind your sternum. The mayor bows. Ghost. The figure speaks, voice low and quiet like a forgotten lullaby. You are late, the mayor sighs. Blame the crown. The figure tilts their head. I always do. You sit, unsure where to look. The figure doesn't turn their head again, but you feel their attention anyway. It's like being watched by someone who remembers you from a past life, and not fondly. The table is set simply. Roasted squash, dried fig slices, couscous flecked with dates, a clay pot of thick stew that smells like cinnamon and slow regrets. The mayor gestures for you to eat. You do, cautiously. It's incredible. Every bite tastes like something your grandmother never made, but should have. Spiced just right. Warm, comforting, with a strange undercurrent of something else. Memory? Mistake? You're not sure. The ghost eats nothing. Or if it does so invisibly. Instead, it speaks. The scroll you did not write today. The thought you chose not to say. The sandal you picked over the one that called you. These things still circle you. The mayor doesn't react. He's busy dipping bread into stew. You, however, stop chewing. The ghost turns slightly and adds, "But you did not step on the chicken. That is good. She is important." You laugh before you can help it. The mayor chokes on couscous. The ghost seems pleased. They continue. There is a wind rising in the south. It smells of pepper and arguments. Tell the Salt King his dreams are shifting. The mayor nods and mutters, "More ginger then." You ask, "Who are you?" The ghost tilts its head. A memory that didn't want to die. They tap a small drum once so softly it's barely audible. I was a scribe who wrote too slowly. I was a wife who asked too many questions. I was a boy who forgot his own voice. I was the thing they said wouldn't speak again. You feel goosebumps rise on your arms. The mayor says they like company, especially on Tuesdays. You try to finish your food, but now each bite tastes like a story you only half remember. Historians still argue whether the Tuesday ghost was a person, a role, or a metaphor passed between generations. Always veiled, always unnamed. Some think the ghost was a real oracle. Others suspect it was a rotating council of poets and spies. No one agrees. No one dares remove the veil. The ghost says, "You must not ignore the lute. It has lied, but kindly." Then they pause. "And the feather in your sandal will not let you sleep unless you ask the sky to forgive it." You check your sandal. Sure enough, a single red feather is caught in the strap. How did they know? The mayor sighs. Every time. The ghost rises without sound. You will leave now. The silence has ended. You nod, standing slowly. The mayor bows again. Until next Tuesday? The ghost pauses. Time will say. And then they vanish behind the veil. You step outside. The sky is turning gold and lavender. The city behind you looks softer now, more dream than structure. You ask the mayor, "How do you know what to believe?" He says, "I believe everything on Tuesdays." That's the trick. You walk in silence for a while. Then the mayor chuckles and says, "Let's go cleanse our ears." You expect a bath, or incense, or perhaps a song. You don't expect the library of forgotten sounds to be waiting for you again. Only this time, you're not listening, you're playing. The mayor hands you a bowl, half filled with water. Strike it, gently. You do. The note echoes, not like before. This one's personal. Yours. He strikes another. Together, they hum. You're not a musician, but something about the tone reaches into you and says, "Yes, you've been here. You left something behind. You found something else." You close your eyes. For a moment, you think you hear the ghost humming, and then the sound fades. The mayor says, "Now, the final walk." To where? He smiles. To the edge of town, where dust and silence shake hands. You walk west, where the sun sinks low enough to smear gold across every wall, every goat, every cracked jug left on a stoop for no reason at all. The streets stretch out longer, shadows braided into the dust like half-formed stories. The mayor walks slowly now, not because he's tired, but because the next ritual demands it. You match his pace, your new sandals whispering over sand. The feather still clings to one strap, stubborn and slightly smug. Everyone walks too fast, the mayor says. That's why we forget things. They fall out of our pockets trying to keep up. You pass a trio of boys carving shapes into a mud wall with sticks. One carves a snake, another a spoon, the third a spiral. None of them speak. They just look up as you pass, then return to carving, as if they've been tasked with preserving the alphabet of some forgotten god. A woman nearby sings a lullaby to her bread dough. A donkey blinks at you, like it knows how this ends. You reach the outer edge of town, where buildings grow rare, and the desert begins to stretch its arms wide again. There's a narrow path between two stone posts, the Arch of Later, the mayor calls it. Beyond it lies a space the townspeople refer to in hushed tones as the edge of talking. Here, no one speaks. You step through. It's not a formal courtyard or shrine, just an open stretch of sand, a few sparse trees, and a low platform shaped like an ear, carved directly into the ground. The mayor steps up onto the platform and sits cross-legged. He pats the stone beside him. You sit. He doesn't speak. Neither do you. The wind does. It lifts and curls, gathering bits of old stories from rooftops, from forgotten socks, from dates too ripe to remember their own sweetness. The wind carries it all here, not as noise, not as speech, as ... possibility. You sit in it. You let it coat your skin. The mayor reaches into his robe and pulls out the pouch of indigo sand Geneva gave him earlier. He opens it, lets a pinch fall into his palm, and holds it up to the wind. The grains drift away. Some swirl back and settle near your feet. That's the part meant for you, he says. You don't answer. You just watch as the sand settles into a pattern. It looks like a question mark, or a fish, or a ladder, or nothing at all. He smiles. It always makes something. It just doesn't always make sense. You lean back on your hands and take in the vastness. The edge of Timbuktu isn't a border. It's a suggestion. The city bleeds into the desert, so gradually it's hard to say where one ends and the other begins. Historians still argue whether this space had any official function. There are no ancient records of rituals held here, no official decrees. But every Tuesday, for as long as anyone remembers, the mayor has come to sit here. Some believe he's communing with ancestors. Others say he's asking the wind to forgive the wheat before it begins. Neither feels wrong. He lifts his hand again. The wind snatches another pinch of sand and carries it somewhere far off. Then he begins to hum. No tune, you know. A low, slow hum that feels like a lullaby for the earth. It's not beautiful, not exactly, but it's right. Like putting your hand on a warm stone that remembers the sun. You join him, just softly. Your hum doesn't match his. It's a different pitch, but somehow they work together. And that's the moment you realize something strange has happened. This whole day, these rituals, these detours, these sideways traditions, they've turned you from an observer into a participant. The ghost knew your sandal. The wind read your silence. The Spice Council lets you taste. You didn't just follow the mayor. You became part of Tuesday. The mayor stops humming and exhales slowly. Time to return, he says. But nothing happened, you whisper. We just sat here. He gives you a look like you've just said the sand isn't sandy. Exactly. On the way back, the light fades quickly. The city is now a silhouette stitched together with lamps, laughter, and the occasional rooster who hasn't adjusted to time zones. You pass the bakery again. A woman inside holds a loaf to her ear, listening. You pass the fountain. Someone has drawn a new phrase in chalk beside it. Don't forget the goat that watches you sleep. You pass the vault of regrets. Its door is closed, but a new scroll lies tucked into the doorframe. Someone couldn't wait. You reach the mayor's home. Modest, quiet, a door with no lock and a roof where pigeons hold nightly gossip sessions. He stops at the threshold and turns to you. You survived. You nod. I think. He leans in. Next Tuesday's weirder. You don't doubt him. He steps inside, then pauses. Same time next week? He asks. You consider everything: the fish crown, the goat insults, the camel court, the ghost's eerie wisdom, and nod. Absolutely. He smiles, disappears behind the curtain, and you're left alone, the wind gently brushing your robe, the feather still in your sandal. You exhale, and it sounds like contentment, but your Tuesday isn't quite over yet. Not until the hour of dust and silence, and that ... is still coming. The hour of dust and silence begins before you realize it. No bells, no horns, no loud declarations, just a hush. A gentle, creeping quiet that rolls over Timbuktu like a soft sheet laid over a restless sleeper. The sun has almost vanished now, leaving only a thin spill of orange along the rooftops. The air feels thicker. Every sound grows muffled. You can still hear the occasional bray of a distant donkey or the clatter of a pot lid, but it all sounds far away, like a memory someone else is remembering for you. The mayor re-emerges, wearing a simple dark robe and carrying 2 small woven mats. He doesn't speak. He just gestures for you to follow. And so you do. Out past the homes and stalls and courtyards you've grown oddly familiar with in a single day. Past the argument fountain, now shadowed and still. Past the baobab tree, where the clay pots have cooled and the breeze rustles the reeds like whispers in a different language. You walk until the city is behind you, until the last rooftop gives way to open sand. Not far just enough. Just where the earth stops feeling like a neighborhood and starts remembering it's the beginning of a desert. The mayor lays the 2 mats down, side by side, on a gentle rise of sand. He sits. You sit. Still no words? And that's the rule. No one speaks during the hour of dust and silence. You're not even sure why. You could ask. But somehow, that would ruin it. So instead, you watch. The wind picks up slightly, lifting a veil of fine sand into the air. It dances not wildly, not cruelly, just enough to blur the edges of the world. You can still see the outline of the city behind you, but it looks softer now, like something drawn in charcoal. The mayor places a smooth stone on his mat. You follow suit, placing whatever you have: a date pit, a piece of broken pottery, even a coin if you're feeling dramatic. It's symbolic, he'd once said. Something solid to weigh down the silence, so it doesn't float away. And here's the strange thing. As the dust moves and the sky fades to deep blue, your thoughts slow down. The worries that usually chatter around your brain, what you forgot to do, who you haven't called back, whether your sandals match, those things fall quiet. Not gone, but quiet. The silence becomes a mirror, and the dust is a curtain. It separates you from the world just enough to make it okay to pause. Somewhere nearby, a bird chirps once and falls silent again, as if remembering the rules. The mayor breathes in deeply, then exhales through his nose. He looks calm. Not peaceful in a sleepy way, but peaceful in the way of someone who's learned how to sit still inside his own story. You do the same. You breathe. You sit. And for the first time in a long time, nothing is expected of you. Historians still argue whether this final ritual of the Mayor's Tuesday was a personal habit or a public inheritance. Some think it originated from an old monastic practice, an hour set aside each week to listen to the wind and forgive yourself. Others claim it began with traders, too exhausted to speak after long desert journeys, choosing instead to simply sit and watch the dust they'd brought home. Whatever the truth, it survives. And tonight, you're part of it. You think back to everything that's happened. The goat-milked tea, the sand-painted complaints, a camel that judged you with a single snort, the letter you didn't write under the baobab tree, the salt slab and its 3 ceremonial kisses, the ghost who called you, the one with the feather. It's all still with you. A tapestry you somehow got woven into. You hear the faintest sound a bell? A drum? No. Just the wind brushing a tuft of dry grass nearby. You glance at the mayor. He's not asleep, but he's not entirely here either. He's in some space between breath and dust, between ritual and rest. You try to follow. Close your eyes. Let your mind quiet. Let your thoughts drift like the sand, brushing softly against everything they've touched today. You are no longer a visitor. You are part of Tuesday. You sit like that for a long time, maybe an hour, maybe 5 minutes. The wind does not keep clocks. Eventually, the dust thins. The air still grows. And slowly, without a word, the mayor rises. He brushes the sand from his robe, picks up his stone, and tucks it back into his pocket. You do the same. He walks back toward the city, slow and sure. And you follow. You walk without speaking, without needing to speak. The city accepts your silence as you pass. The children are tucked into bed. The goats have stopped arguing. The scent of bread lingers in the air like a lullaby. When you finally reach the mayor's door again, he turns and places a hand on your shoulder. Same time next week, he says, voice quiet and warm. You nod, of course. He steps inside, and you walk home in your borrowed sandals, brushing the feather from your ankle, carrying a new silence that hums gently under your ribs. Tuesday is over, but it will return. It always does. You wake up the next morning with sand in your shoes, a crick in your neck, and the haunting suspicion that a goat blessed you in your sleep. But it's not Tuesday anymore, and that makes all the difference. Still, the rhythm of the day lingers like music that stopped hours ago, but keeps humming in the walls. You find yourself moving more slowly, listening more carefully, eyeballing your sandals in case they've developed opinions overnight. The mayor, of course, is nowhere to be seen. On Wednesdays, he disappears, vanishes like chalk in a sandstorm. No one knows where he goes. Some say he walks out into the desert alone. Others whisper of underground chambers or hidden towers filled with sleeping cats and urgent scrolls. You don't ask. Instead, you walk the city alone. Or at least you think it's alone. Every now and then, you catch a glimpse, a flash of indigo fabric rounding a corner, or a trail of oddly salty footprints near the well. You start to notice things you missed yesterday, like how the woman who sells dates always sets aside one fruit, perfectly shaped, and leaves it on a little altar made of river stones. Or how the baker hums exactly 4 notes before kneading his dough, always the same notes. always in the same order. Or how the roof where the Tuesday diplomacy happened now holds a bowl of mint leaves, carefully arranged like a compass rose. You start to understand that Tuesday wasn't a performance. It was a frequency, and you tuned into it. You stop by the argument fountain. No one's there, but someone's chalked a new phrase beside it. Time may be a goat, but at least it walks funny. You smile. Then you visit the spice bakery. It smells different now. Quieter. Cinnamon instead of cardamom. The apprentice nods solemnly at you, as if recognizing you've crossed some invisible threshold. He offers you a roll without speaking. You take a bite. It tastes like waiting. Near the scroll vault, the door is ajar. A new scroll sits on the floor just inside. The wax seal bears a duck. The caption reads, "I'm sorry I pretended not to know your name just because you changed hats." You decide not to read more. Some regrets are better admired from a distance. You don't go back to the ghost's house. No one does on a Wednesday. But you do pass the baobab, and you notice a new pot added high in the branches, tied with a golden thread. Someone's still writing. You glance at your sandal. The feather's gone. In its place, a pebble, smooth, small, shaped somehow like a question mark curled in sleep. And you wonder, will next Tuesday be the same? Or will it reinvent itself, as it always does? That's the thing no one tells you. The mayor doesn't repeat his Tuesdays. Not exactly. The rhythm stays the same, but the notes? Always improvised. One week, he might bless a tree stump. Next, he might argue with rain. He once held a 20-minute funeral for a broken ladle, during which someone proposed marriage, and 2 chickens solved a riddle no one remembered asking. Timbuktu breathes in patterns and breathes out surprises. It always has. Historians still argue whether this fluid structure was designed or simply evolved, like a city slowly remembering it has a soul. You suspect the mayor lets them argue. It keeps the scroll vault interesting. Back at your lodging, you find a folded paper tucked under your door. No name, no seal. Just a question, scrawled in that same loopy script you saw once on a regret scroll. Did you listen? Or did you just hear? You don't answer. Not out loud. You just tuck it into your pocket and exhale. Tuesday is gone. But it left fingerprints all over you. As you settle in for the night, a breeze brushes the window. It smells faintly of cumin and forgotten promises. And you smile, because next week, next Tuesday, you know exactly where you'll be. Sitting in the dust, wearing someone else's sandals. Trying not to laugh at a goat that looks suspiciously like the one from court. You spend the days between Tuesdays in a strange kind of anticipation. It's not like waiting for a festival, or a birthday, or even a letter from someone who still writes letters. It's more like waiting for a secret to remember it exists. You go about your tasks buying fruit, fixing a tear in your sleeve, wondering whether the baker is glaring at his yeast again. But everything feels like it's happening in parentheses. On Friday, a child throws a sandal at a goat and then apologizes to the wrong chicken. No one corrects them. On Sunday, you catch someone painting a fish on the side of a house. When you ask why, they reply, to remind the wall that it's more than structure. You nod, naturally, but Monday night is different. There's a particular kind of quiet that falls across Timbuktu. After sunset on Monday, the air gets thick, like it's holding its breath. Even the drums at the edge of town practice more softly. Cats, those eternal diplomats of strange energies, move slower, and blink more often. You spot one perched on the scroll vault's roof, swatting dust like it's rehearsing judgment. And then, without fanfare, Tuesday arrives. You wake before dawn, just like last week, maybe earlier. The mayor is already moving. Of course he is. Today, he wears a robe, the color of early sky, and has a string of buttons dangling from one sleeve for no reason anyone can explain. His sandals, mismatched, have clearly been borrowed from someone with strong opinions about arch support. He grins at you. Let's start with the goat. Which goat? Exactly. You follow. The rhythm returns. The painted sand complaints. The salt cellar with its 3 sacred kisses. The camel's courtroom, where Hafiz judges 2 men arguing over whether shadows can be shared. But it's not just repetition. It's deepening. Today, the ghost sings. Only one note. A low hum, like a rock remembering a waterfall. When it ends, the stew tastes different, sweeter, somehow nostalgic. The mayor says, that note cured an argument I had 5 years ago. The lutenist plays nothing today. Instead, he braids his strings into the shape of a hand. No one questions it. The mayor simply bows and leaves a poem behind. The string is tired. The wind will hum for now. Let it. At the fountain, the philosopher from last week is replaced by a woman who insists time is shaped like a teacup. The mayor disagrees, claiming time is a spoon that keeps stirring itself. They walk 10 laps. You only follow for 4. Something in your sandals is whispering rebellion. Back at the Spice Bakery, there is no council this week. Instead, 6 bowls are set out, each filled with a different scent. No words are spoken, just sniffing. The mayor closes his eyes, breathes deep, and says, this week will lean toward green. Good for mending. You try 1 bowl. It smells like a memory that wasn't yours. Possibly cardamom. Possibly heartbreak. In the scroll vault, a new rule has appeared. It hangs from the door in faded ink. Do not regret things that made you laugh. You obey. Someone added a small mirror next to the scroll as Ema wrote. The mirror is cracked, but in it, you catch your own reflection smiling softly, thoughtfully. You're changing. Tuesdays are changing you. The goat from last week appears again. She follows you for 3 blocks, then stops at the fish market. She chooses her own sandal. No one argues. Historians still argue whether any of this goat's, loot's, letters to the dead is recorded anywhere official. Timbuktu's real archives, they say, are sealed, protected, unbroken. But you begin to understand something else. The real archive is Tuesday. The repetition, the rhythm, the way the mayor remembers without needing to recall. By now, you can walk the city without asking questions. You know which alley smells like fennel after dusk. You know where the best shadows form for storytelling. You know not to look directly at the donkey that sometimes floats for just a second before landing again. As dusk falls, you return with the mayor to the edge of town. This time, you bring your own mat. The mayor nods, pleased. The wind is different tonight, softer, sadder. It lifts the corner of your mat and whispers something about rivers that never leave their banks. The mayor doesn't hum. Neither do you. You just sit, 2 silhouettes, 2 weights placed gently in the dust. And in that hour, you feel the whole city breathing in rhythm with you. This Tuesday is nearly over, but the city doesn't close like a book. It lingers, like heat on stone, like the faint scent of spice on your sleeve, like the salt that still lingers in the corner of your mouth a week after the Salt King's kiss. Night stretches long and warm across Timbuktu. By now, the city's awake in its sleep, dreaming with open eyes, listening without ears. You and the mayor walk back without words, letting your footsteps do the remembering. The city has a different sound at night. Not louder, just deeper. Pots clink in soft rituals. Someone snores melodically through an open window. A cat leaps onto a roof and lands with the kind of grace that should win awards, or at least startle applause. You pass a window where a candle flickers against a map painted directly on the wall. No landmarks, no labels, just lines and curves, and a small goat sketched in the bottom corner. The mayor leads you down a path you didn't take last time, past walls covered in dried flowers, past a bench that hums faintly when you touch it. You pass the baobab again. There's a new pot, sealed with green wax. You recognize the handwriting. Your own. You forgot you left a message. At the mayor's house, he pauses on the steps. There's no speech, no summary of the day. He just offers you a slow nod. But before he disappears, he says, "You kept your shape." Then he's gone. You sit just outside. You don't need to go in. Not yet. You've got dust in your pockets and a silence in your chest that hums like the final note of a song you never expected to know by heart. The streets are nearly empty. A soft breeze nudges a wind chime made from old ink jars and spoons. It sings once. You feel ready. Not for sleep, for something softer than that. Something the wind might call dreaming. And so you walk to the edge of the city, to the place where you sat last week, and the week before. You lay your mat down gently. The feather from your sandal, long lost, is here somehow, waiting. You press it into the sand beside you. You breathe, and the desert exhales with you. And now, as the sand cools beneath you, and the last traces of sun vanish into the folds of a deep blue sky, you let your breath slow. Let the sounds grow distant, softer, slower. You feel the weight of the day, not as a burden, but as a blanket woven from footsteps, tea, laughter, and the feathered silence of a place that never needed to be explained. You are still. You are full of story. You are part of a rhythm that began long before you arrived and will continue long after your sandals are placed beside someone else's. The wind brushes your cheek now, gentler than before. It carries the scent of spice and paper, of quiet thoughts left on rooftops, of something familiar that doesn't need a name. And you let yourself lean into it. You let your limbs grow heavy. Let your breath grow longer. Let the dust settle. Somewhere, a goat bleats in its sleep. Somewhere else, a lute hums a note without being touched. You feel safe here, unfolded, unhurried, unspoken. And as your eyes begin to close, the last image that remains is simple. A path through shifting sands, a city that welcomes silence, and a mayor in mismatched sandals, already planning next Tuesday one quiet, impossible step at a time. You rest now, wrapped in dust and laughter. The story pauses. The city sleeps. And so do you.